This is Daniel James Smith, Oral Presentation, Module 4, Sustainable Prospects. Within my current practice as it stands, I am a motorsport photographer for motorsport.com, working on a contribution freelance basis for motorsport.com since 2009. Having been in the position of already completing my FMP, it was my aim for this module to complete a mini project for the Work in Progress portfolio. And rather than focusing on international motorsport, as I did in my final major project, I wanted to concentrate on amateur historic racing and give the audience viewing the photographs a feeling of the atmosphere, people and machinery, where the race itself is mainly a hobby, and though some do aspire to one day be professionals, this is still a very long way off. I have called the mini project Out the back end of motorsports from a distance, showing amateur and historic events from the view of not only the competitors, but the spectators, track officials and the media, to give a strong feeling of nostalgia. In a way, all photography is nostalgia. Everything is happening in the present, but as soon as you take a photograph, it becomes history. In my final major project, I had different aims. This was to engage an audience with a season of endurance motorsport, where the races range from 3 to 24 hours. Using my own individual style to convey a sense of the iconic and otherworldly, which I feel in time developed into a journalistic style, though at the time this was not the target. Aiming to create photos that inspire emotion in an audience so they internalise the struggle and difficulty inherent within motorsport's ultimate world of pressure. Where I feel this mini-project lies similar to my FMP is images will build a narrative with an abstractive storyline, grouping the photos into phases of a race. For my current project, opting for a different approach and style, both projects, however, aim to create a visual statement which allows a unique sport to be experienced on a relatable and emotional plane. Before starting the project, it was my aim to have a street photography mindset in view for this project, having always previously produced photographs of this nature. These images are an example of my street photography work from 2008 until present. They were taken outside the realms of the course, not being my current practice. When creating these images, there was no aim and reasoning behind taking the shots, other than I found the scenes aesthetically pleasing. But I wished for the first time to incorporate this style of image into this module and mini project, with early influences such as William Christenberry and Walker Evans, to marry the two styles together and create something new. Whilst experimenting using the influences from William Christenberry and Walker Evans to show functioning architecture in a state of wear. The two often show exactly the same buildings. The main difference between the two is that Evans intended his photographs to show both evidence of a rural journey and construction techniques, whereas Christenberry shows his images set within landscapes and touched by the weather and seasons. I aim to create some images of this nature, buildings within the motorsport environment, architecture and landscapes touched by the weather, to give a further impression of the atmosphere at a racetrack and increase narrative within the project. When creating the mini project, I wanted to give the audience impressions of the feelings of the event, the atmosphere, the human emotion and architecture, using scenes that capture machinery and, in this case, the season, using subtle hints of the time of year that the race event has taken place. Also, not showing the cars or even the racing itself being the main focal point, aiming to show clues within the images that the images were taken at a race event. Referring back to the title, Out the Back, the project aims, as well as other things, to capture the culture out the back of the pit lane, away from the track itself. To try and show motorsport on a limited budget, in difference to my final major project, where events covered involve a huge international companies such as Audi, Blancpain and Ford, who invest millions of pounds into the teams and drivers. Nostalgia is very much a part of an event of this type, With both spectators and all personnel involved, many drivers have seen these cars race in their heyday, and now older have the opportunity to compete in the machines of their youth, or on the other hand have been working on the same cars for 20 to 30 years. And likewise, the crowd attend these events to see the machines of their youth, or in some cases, as my father does to this day, to see the cars and the types of cars they worked on 30 years ago. For me as a photographer covering events such as these, and being the first time I've ever covered an event of this nature, mainly historic, it really did remind me and felt like race events I attended with my father in the early and mid-90s, and I wanted to portray this feeling with my images. This is still a sporting event, however, and all directly involved all have one ambition, and this is to win. In some cases, drivers have been competing in this one-off event, the Walter Hayes Trophy, for over 10 years, and have come close on many occasions. In the case of this particular competitor, the eventual victory and the goal of eventually being achieved, and all the emotions for all involved are clearly impossible to contain. When editing the mini project, there were some images I initially were very pleased with the day I shot them, but later found they simply didn't fit into the style and story of the project. This was verified by discussions with my peers and tutors. Though the images are technically fine, I felt that the focal point on this one particular driver was too individual, and it draws the audience's attention away from the project as a whole. Also aesthetically, they have a different look from other images within the project. Past influences including Andreas Gursky and Darren Heath showing the racing cars at speed, or the cars on the track being the main attraction, is an angle I wanted to stay away from in this project. Whilst creating the project, an article was included in Autosport magazine and Autosport.com titled The Star Mercedes Photographer Who Can't Take Pictures of Cars, where Paul Ripke records the team members of the Mercedes team exclusively for Mercedes, only behind the scenes, and occasionally only uses an iPhone. It was proof to me that I was in the same line of thinking as one of my contemporaries. Influences for this project included that of Jan Gross in his work Kittikantale, which focuses on the subculture of skateboarding within Eastern Africa. In my opinion, I felt there was no real narrative, and a series of great images can be created without one. And using landscape and portraiture, you can give a series of images a powerful sense of place. Capturing human emotion I felt to be an integral part of the project. The photograph on the left, taken by Giselle Freud, of writer Walter Benjamin during the 1930s in a Parisian cafe, shows the emotion, concentration and stress in comparison to my image on the right, which shows frustration and disappointment. Even at amateur levels, motorsport's ultimate world of pressure takes its toll. In Spencer Murphy's work, One Wheel Bad, the standout point I found was the portraiture work that shows subjects looking directly into the camera, something lacking within my project, and is something I wish to include in future projects, outside of the course. It showed me that photography is not all about the photograph, but also to build relationships and engage with the subjects, which is also an integral part of motorsports photography. Through the second year of my course, and during the final major project and this module, I have been advised that creating a project following a solitary driver, not only during the race, but at home and at the factory, including images that tell a complete story of what it takes to be a racing driver. This is something I aim to do after completing the course, whilst also using Motorsport.com to show my work within social media and featured articles to gain an audience, which I did in the past in a feature article showing my final major project work. Thank you.